In 1732, when he was 26 years old, Benjamin Franklin had one of his best ideas. He decided to publish an almanac. Every family bought an almanac each year. People read it to find out holidays, the weather forecast, the schedule of tides, the time the sun came up and went down, when the moon would be full, when to plant what. It was just the kind of book that Benjamin loved, full of odd pieces of information and bits of advice on this and that. It was, in addition to being a calendar, a grand how-to book, and Benjamin figured he knew as many how-tos as anyone else. Besides, he knew a lot of jokes. He put them all in his almanac and called it Poor Richard's Almanac, and published the first edition in 1733. His specialty was short, one-line sayings. Sometimes these one-liners were quick how-to hints for everyday living. Eat to live, not live to eat. A penny saved is a penny earned. Half-wits talk much but say little. Sometimes his one-liners were humorous comments on life. Men and melons are hard to know. There are more old drunkards than old doctors. Fish and visitors smell in 3 days. In a few years, Franklin was selling 10,000 copies of his almanac every year, and he kept at it for 25 years. This was certainly a good idea, but it was not Benjamin Franklin's big idea. He was 40 years old when he first became interested in the idea that would become the big one. By this time, he had 2 children, William Temple, who was 17, and Sarah, who was 2. A third child, Frances, died in 1736 when she was only 4 years old. The idea had to do with electricity, which had become a new fad. For some time, it had been known that electricity could be generated by rubbing glass tubes with silk. Now, a Dutch scientist had found that this electricity could be stored in specially equipped bottles and then drawn from them by applying wires or conductors to the 2 sides of the bottles. All over Europe, people were meeting in darkened rooms to see these sparks and tricks that could be performed. Wires twisted into the shapes of giant spiders were electrified, and sparks were drawn from a cake of ice and even from the head of a boy suspended from the ceiling by a silk rope. Electrical performers traveled from town to town selling shocks to curious people. Once, before a large audience in Spain, 180 grenadiers were linked together by wire and then given a shock to make them jump into the air at the same time.